Hey, what is happening, guys? It is Capone here, and recently I've been watching videos on YouTube of people showing off their Stephen King book collections, and I wanted to show off mine. I was watching them mainly to try and find perhaps novels or collections of short stories and novellas that I maybe don't know about and that are really obscure, because I've spent the past so many years since I got into Stephen King and got into his work trying to collect every kind of book or whatever, especially the fiction section. I know he's wrote two non-fiction books, as far as I'm aware, but mainly the fiction section is what I've been trying to, to try and find out, and try and find all of the, all of the items, his entire library, I guess. So I'm making this video mostly because when I was watching those other videos, mainly when I was watching those other videos, the people that were showing the books, they kept showing books, and I was like, yeah, I've got it. The only one that kept coming up that I was like, oh, actually, I don't have that one, was the non-fiction book on writing. I did not plan to get any of King's non-fiction works, which I believe it's On Writing and Dance Macabre, or however it's pronounced, is the other non-fiction work. I'm not sure what that one is on, but according to a lot of the people that had the On Writing non-fiction book, it's good accordingly for people like myself that are aspiring authors to get, just to see what how to write. Like King apparently says and tells you how to write stories and all of that stuff. So I'm thinking about picking it up at some point in time, if I can manage to find it somewhere on the cheap or whatever. So yeah, that one I'm planning on getting. I don't think it'll be too hard. I don't think he brought it out that long ago. I actually remember when he brought it out, and I was like, it's non-fiction. I won't bother about getting it. And yeah, there's four books that I know that I don't have, which is the two non-fiction books, On Writing and Dance Macabre. Oh my god, and it's and then the other two actual fiction novels that I know I don't have, The Colorado Kid and Rage. Now, The Colorado Kid, as far as I can see online and stuff like that, shouldn't be that hard to get. But Rage, I know I've been trying to get for a fucking long time, and it's either too expensive just to like buy it online, or what have you. I do really want to get that, but obviously that would be the issue. So yeah, I'm looking. Well, I'm not really looking, but I'm doing this. If anyone else out there is also a Stephen King fan is watching this, if you want to watch the entire thing, or skip through or whatever and see what books I'm showing off that is in my collection, and if you know of any other than those four I just mentioned, if you know of any others that are novels or collections of any sort that I am actually missing, that I don't realize I'm missing and I don't know about, obviously leave a comment down below, and will be very grateful. The other one actually is Stephen King Goes to the Movies, but from what I can tell, that one is just a bunch of novellas and short stories that had previously been published that I should have in my short stories and novellas collections I already have. So I'm not bothering getting that one either, because I already have the stories that are in it, but just in other collections. I believe Stephen King Goes to the Movies is just a lot of the short stories and novellas that got turned into movies, thus the Goes to the Movies subheading. But yeah, other than that, guys, I'm going to quickly get down to business because I have quite a lot. I have in total 65 Stephen King books. They are all fiction, and they are either novels or collections of some description. And the 65 books I've read, 43 of them. So I'm kind of, I've read a lot. So I'm going to show off the cover, the front cover or whatever of the edition that I have. They are in paperback and hardback, just randomly. A lot of them I got just from searching like secondhand bookstores and stuff, and I just like piled them up and piled like 6 or 7 of them up and carried them up, and I'm like, I don't have any of these, can I buy them? And I would buy them, and that's why they're all kind of all over the place. And a lot of them look really, really used. At least the spines of them do, because they are secondhand, a lot of them. Not all of them, especially a lot of the newer ones I have gotten brand new from stores when they came out. But yeah, without further ado, I know it's already been 6 minutes, so I don't want to make it super long, but this is potentially going to be like at least a half-hour long video, so I'm going to try and get through it. I'll show the cover, I'll say if I've read the book, and give a brief description whether I like the book or what, if I can even remember if I liked it. So yeah, all my books are in chronological order, so obviously we're going to be starting off with Kerry. Really hoping that the video switches it around, and it's not all back to front like I'm seeing it right now. I'm pretty sure it should, but yeah, so Kerry. This one I think appears to be kind of like you have the original movie Kerry, the original movie that got made, on the back. This one I have read. I liked it. It was alright. It's a nice short book. Obviously it's King's first work that actually got published. It's not his first work. I believe that honour goes to Rage, I believe. But yeah, this is the first book of his that actually got published. I read it. It was good. I'm not going to say it's one of his best. I know a lot of people like to call it a classic, but yeah, I found it alright. It's a good book. It's just not one of my favourites. So yeah, that's the first one. The second one I have is Salem's Lot. I believe it's like the second book I ever read of King's, but with this one, it's not, it's really weird. It comes to like, what is it, about 430 pages, and I cannot remember. I remember I read it. I know I read it, and I can remember certain parts throughout the book. I can remember them. But the whole book in general, it feels like I read the first quarter or the first half of the book and then took the bookmark out and put it away to read again later. I can't actually... It's like I read it in a fever dream. I can't really remember... I know that I read it, but I can't really remember that I read it, if you get what I mean. We're talking... I think this was the second book of his I ever read. So we're talking back in, like... I don't know... The year... It was like 2008, 2009 when I started reading King. So it's a little while ago, but there is books that I have read at around that same time that I can remember quite clearly. So this one, alright book, but I can't really 100% remember it, so sweet. Okay, so next up we have obviously a classic. We have The Shining. Everyone knows the Stanley Kubrick film. According to Stephen King, he didn't like it. I have not seen the film. I've seen parts. Books are kind of falling over a tiny bit. I have seen parts of the film, but I haven't actually seen the entire film, like in its entirety or whatever, but I have read the book in its entirety, and I'd put this up here as a classic. I can remember more or less the whole book, other than like the parts that are like, you really wouldn't remember unless you read through it again, but the general premise of the book, I remember the entire thing, and it's quite a good book. I had to read this because at the time that I was... At the time, a lot of the Stephen King books that were coming out brand new, that he'd only just wrote, and they were coming out that year, Doctor Sleep had just come out, and I heard that it was a prequel, or not a prequel, a sequel to The Shining, and I was like, shit, well, I have to read The Shining, because I had yet to read it, and I was like, I'm going to read that before I can read Doctor Sleep, which I was trying to keep up on the new books every time they came out. So, Yeah. Next up, we have Night Shift, which is the, I believe, first short story collection of Stephen King's. With a lot of the collections, I haven't read a heap of collections of his, but a lot of them I can't fully remember. A lot of the stories in them, I just kind of forget them. I know the only one that I can kind of remember good from Night Shift, forgot the name for a second, from Night Shift was Children of the Corn, probably my favourite one out of there. Is it worth the read? It all depends on if you like short story collections or what have you. Oh god. Let me just sit that up there slightly. I knew I was going to have a tiny bit of trouble with the camera holding it up. Just trying to figure out. Okay, yeah, it is not. I'm going to move it over a bit after I get these first original books done, and it should be more stable, because it's kind of on a bit of a rocky surface at the moment. So the next book is obviously The Stand. This thing, as people have said, is a fucking weapon, and I do agree with that. This and It, obviously his biggest books. I think my version of It is slightly bigger than The Stand, but then I have heard people have had versions of The Stand that are like 1,400 pages. I believe this is like 1,200 and something. Oh no, just over 1,300 pages. While I think my version of It is like 1,350 or something, but it has it by a couple of pages. It does. But The Stand I have yet to read. This is the first one I'm coming to that I haven't read yet. Very big. Obviously, I need to find time to actually read it. You have to kind of set aside a month or so to get through this bad boy. It's pretty big. It's a pretty fucking big book. Same with It. At the time when I read It, I wanted to just slide this in here real quick like. Yeah, at the time I read It, I wanted to read a big King book, and I knew it was either going to be down to It or The Stand, and the new It movie was coming out, so I was like, I'll read It first before I read The Stand, just so, because I'd already seen like the older It movie with Tim Curry as Pennywise. So I was like, oh, well, I'll be that book nerd that has read the entire book before this new one comes out, because I knew it was going to take off with all the new kids and that, getting into King's work, and especially getting into the story of It, which turned out to be a part 1 thing. So part 2 coming out sometime soon. I don't know. I'm not sure when, but I'm already up to date on both the old version, the new version, and the book itself. So, you know, real nerdy thing to do. But anyway, we're going to blast through them. The Dead Zone, I have read this one. Can't remember it, much like Salem's Lot. I cannot really remember much of this. I think it had something to do with, if anyone's out there that is watching and has read The Dead Zone, I can remember he either gets a concussion or goes into a coma or something. Something about that he can see the real world and the Dead Zone, thus the name of the book, and something about the president. That's all I can remember about this one, but I have read it. It's just vague in my memory of books of his that I've read. It's one of those ones that I know I've read. Even Salem's Lot, I feel like I haven't read it completely. But The Dead Zone, I know I've read, and I can remember certain parts from it, but I can't remember how it ends, what's in the middle, how the whole story goes. It's just one of them ones that it's like, whatever. Next up we have Firestarter. This one I read on holidays at some point in time, one of my holidays. This one is alright. It's pretty good. It's better than The Dead Zone. It's better than Salem's Lot. I can remember what happened in this one. So yeah, I don't want to kind of give too many recommendations. I just kind of want to show off if they're good, or show them off and say if they are worth the read or if they are terrible. A lot of Kings I'm going to say are worth the read though. The other one, this other one, Kujo, obviously a classic. I seen the movie before I read the book, and I believe there's a different ending between the book and the movie. Really enjoyed this one. Really enjoyed it. It was a decent size. It wasn't like I had to, take time off work or something to like actually grind through it. It's a nice sized book, well paced and all that. If you haven't read this, this would be definitely one of the classics. This and The Shining, out of the ones I've showed you so far, would be the ones that are like I would recommend to read if you're not looking at getting every single Stephen King book. I would recommend reading at least those two so far out of the ones I've showed you. Sit this up here and hope it sits there nice enough. Oh god, it's gonna slightly move, maybe, I don't know. Okay, this one's kind of just like gonna sit here, I guess. Next up, one of the newer ones, it's Different Seasons, which I believe is like, it's a collection. It's either short story or novellas or a mixture of both. I have not read this. I believe maybe Shawshank's in this. Yeah, The Body, which I believe is actually Stand By Me. The film Stand By Me, which I have not seen that either. And yeah, Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. So Shawshank Redemption is in here as well. So I've got to get around to reading this at some point in time, simply because the two movies that were made from the stories in this book are meant to be, they're good movies. I've seen Shawshank, and I would agree with that. It's one of the best. It's probably one of the best movies, which kind of actually makes me scared for the book, or at least the novella, whatever you want to call it, for it being good, because the movie is held in such high regard. Next up is a reasonably new book that I've gotten, or that I got not that long ago. It's a illustrated version of Cycle of the Werewolf. I know that this one must be somewhat rare, not the illustrated version, but just the book in general, because by the time I had 4 shelves of Stephen King books, by the time I had the 4 shelves of Stephen King books, this one I still hadn't gotten. I still hadn't seen it anywhere at any secondhand bookstores or anywhere like that. So yeah, it's got some nice, not a very long one. It's got some nice illustrations or whatever, throughout. And I believe it must be pretty rare. I read it. It's not one that I super enjoyed. I felt like I was reading like a kind of a child's book. I don't know if it was because of the illustration, the whole illustration thing, or what it was exactly. But yeah, that one was just kind of like, I wouldn't recommend it. It's kind of just here to complete the collection. I wouldn't recommend actually buying it if you're not trying to complete the collection. Next up, we have a book that I have yet to read, Christine. Obviously I know about the movie and all that, and I know that apparently this book, the first half, according to someone that had read it, the first half is in first person perspective, and then the second half of the book randomly changes to third person. That's going to be kind of weird. They said it was weird. They said it was not good. They didn't like how that change happened. But yeah, I haven't read it yet. Yeah, Christine. At some point in time, all the ones that I have yet to read, I will read. Obviously, I've read quite a lot of them, though. I mean, 43 out of 65 that I own is quite a lot. Next up, we have Pet Sematary. Obviously, a fucking classic. This one also goes with The Shining. It goes with Kujo. This one is a definite reader. I have read it, obviously. Yeah, it's a really good book. I know they have the Pet Sematary, the remake of the movie, the movie remake coming out 2019, so next year. So that will be interesting to see. And obviously, I can already say that I've book nerded up on this one as well, and be really smug to my friends that don't read books. So I'll slide that back in there. That one was apparently, according to King, so terrifying that he almost didn't want to release it. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm not really one to find horror books scary. I just kind of enjoy them for their story rather than being scared. Maybe if I had read it when I was a younger child. I'm not saying that people that do get scared of them are children. I'm just saying that, like, if I had read it when I was younger, maybe I would have. But since I read it when I was, like, in my teenage years, it's not super scary. Obviously, the next Goliath, the one, the only, it, considered by a lot as King's best work, and I would definitely consider that as well. Boy, it was a tough thing to read this. I did read it, but yeah, you can see the little, oh god, you see the little boy with the balloons? We all know that one. We all know what that's from. This book, obviously, very large as well. I think it comes to almost 1,400 pages. Holy shit. I thought it was like 1,200, but no. I did read this, really enjoyed it. Probably up there. It's definitely a classic, but obviously a lot of people aren't going to sit down. If they are not readers, they're not going to sit down and read a book that large, even if it is a classic. And yeah, they just opt for the movie, I guess. Next up, we have, I believe, other than Cycle of the Werewolf, which is kind of like hardcover, but it's not hardcover. I don't know what the hell you'd call it. But it's not, I wouldn't strictly say it's paperback. But we come to the first hardcover book that I have, which is the short story collection, I believe, or a collection of some description, Skeleton Crew. Obviously, it's got a dust jacket, blah, 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 you know. Big old picture of Mr. King himself on the back, looking suave. But yeah, this one I have yet to read. I don't even know what stories are in it. I'm not going to kind of check just to kind of save time on this video, because I'm looking at the timer now and it's going to actually go longer than a half an hour. We might be in for an hour-long video. Sorry about that, guys, but just how it goes. I might even split it into 2 separate videos once I get the second shelf done. I might split, you know, have this video and then have a second video of the other 2 shelves. But yeah, next up we have The Eyes of the Dragon. This one I have yet to read. I've been putting it off for a little while, not because it's a big book, it's not very big, but I've just been reading like other things. So yeah, I have yet to read this one. Much like Skeleton Crew and, you know, Christine and whatever else. I have yet to read it. But we'll get around to it, obviously. All of the ones that I have not read, I will get around to at some point in time. This is my pride and joy, Misery. The first Stephen King book I ever read, from cover to cover. Yeah. Misery was amazing. It's definitely a classic. It's definitely a must-read. Obviously, the parts where, the misery parts where he's typing the book inside the book kind of thing, kind of got a bit dull, but the actual book itself is amazing. I can remember everything from it, and yeah, it's definitely a must-pick up, a must-read, especially if you are looking for classic Stephen King books. And I just have a lot of memories of that book, since it was the first time I'd ever gotten introduced to Stephen King's work. Last book to complete off the first shelf out of 4. Just keep that in mind, guys. I'm very sorry. 23 minutes. Shit. We have The Tommyknockers. Have not read this one. I've been wanting to read this one. It's kind of big. It's not super big, but it's kind of big. And I've just kind of put it off like everything else. Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly speed along down to the second shelf, which the first book on the second shelf we have is The Dark Half. Yeah, it's The Dark Half. What can you say? I did read this one. Can't remember a whole lot from it. I remember there was a writer and he had a dark half. And this, I always get confused with the Dead Zone, specifically because they both start with the word "the," and then then it is followed by the the other 2 words. They're both 3. What I'm trying to say is they both start with "the," and they are both three word titles, and all the other two words, Dead Zone and Dark Half, they both have 4 letters, and then obviously Dead and Dark start with D. I always get these two very confused. Not sure why. I don't think they really have a lot, when I read them, I don't think they have a lot to do with each other. Like, they're not kind of the same story, but a different kind of, same type of idea, as far as I can remember. But this one also, I can't super duper remember at all, but I know I did read it. Next up, we have another collection of some description, 4 Past Midnight. Have not read this either. It is obviously pretty chunky for a collection of, I'd imagine it's short stories and, I don't know, apparently it's a novella collection, according to this content, so novella collection. Makes more sense that it would be so chunky, I guess. But no, have not read 4 Past Midnight. Just gonna slide this back in here and get going a bit more. Needful Things. This one I have not read either. I believe this is the first book that King wrote after he got sober, after the intervention with his family and all that. This is the first one he wrote after he got sober. Yeah. Not a lot to say about it because I have yet to read it, but we'll get around to it. I've heard good things and bad things from it. It seems, from what people have said, it's one of those ones you either like or you hate. There's no in between. Next up, we have Gerald's Game, which is a book that I read. Originally my mum read when she was in hospital there a couple of years back, and she was like, oh, do you have a book that I can read? And I was like, well, I'm sitting in here doing nothing, and I was like, I have this one. It's not like super big, it's not like an it-size book, Gerald's Game. I haven't read it yet. You can sure have a stab at it and see what it's all about. And she gave it back and said it was really good. I read it, I really liked it, and I watched the Netflix original remake, or first time it had been made into a movie, I'm not sure, but I watched that the other day, and it was really good as well, so yeah. Next up we have a hardcover of Dolores Claiborne. This one I have read. I remember what it's about, but I don't remember a whole heap of it. It's one I read it in like 2 days. I wouldn't super recommend it. It's not a classic or anything like that. As I said, so far the only ones that I would consider classics, must reads, would be The Shining, Kujo, Pet Sematary, It, and Misery. Up until this point in time, maybe there might be a couple others in there that I have yet to read. Probably The Stand would be counted in there from what I've heard, but yeah. Dolores Claiborne doesn't need to be read, in my opinion, unless you are a die-hard King fan. And then obviously you must read everything by the Master of Horror. Next up, we have a massive hardcover of Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which is a collection of short stories or novellas. Not sure which one, haven't read it. But yeah, just going to kind of show it off really quickly and put it back, because I don't want to take up too much time with stuff I haven't read. Next up we have Insomnia. Really like the cover on this one. It is also a hardcover with a dust jacket and all the fancy shiz. This one I have yet to read as well. It's kind of lengthy, but it's not like super lengthy, I don't think. It could be deceiving, but I don't think it's only 620 pages. It looks bigger, but it's only 620 only. I know a lot of people out there that aren't book readers are going to be like, what the fuck, dude? Only 620? But yeah, so Insomnia, haven't read it yet. Don't know a lot about it. We'll get around to it. Next up, we go back to the paperbacks with A Rose Matter. I really like the wallets here and how it, like, the husband's face goes from a regular person's face to like a demon or whatever the hell, or a bull. Yeah, I remember this book. I I remember this book, but I don't think I did read it, I remember it, but it's not one I'd super recommend, unless you are just trying to read all the King's books, and then obviously you would be reading it anyway. But yeah, that's Rose Matter. It's alright. It's nothing to kind of write home about. Next up we have a hardcover copy with dust jacket of Desperation. This book, I watched the old-timey movie. Not old-timey movie, I'm not going to say that, but it was like, the movie was made in like the 90s or some shit. And then I read the book after, like well after, and I remembered the movie. And I don't really enjoy Desperation, the movie or the book. It was a bit of a challenge getting through this one, and it kind of felt like a chore, I guess, to read it. So sorry about that, Mr. King, but yeah, Desperation was a bit of a chore, and I didn't enjoy it a whole heap. Alright. Next up we have a paperback copy of Vagabonds. My friend, I actually seen this in a secondhand bookstore when I was downtown one day, and I had a lot of books at this point in time of King's, and I had yet to get this one, which means that I think it must be like slightly less common. And I didn't have any money on me, so my friend was a top bloke and lent me like $14 or something like that, however much it was for this book. I paid him back, in case you wanted to know, but yeah, thanks for that, bro. Have not read Vagabonds yet. So it's been a couple of years since he got it for me, and I haven't read it, but I'll get around to it. Next up we have a hardcover dust jacket copy of The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. This one, very, very short King book. Very, very short novel. Girl gets lost in the woods, and it's instead of like a what would Jesus do moment, it's like a what would Tom Gordon do moment, who is apparently a baseball player or something. I guess he actually existed, I want to say. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he's just for the book. I'm not sure. But I'm not really into baseball at all. So, and I know Stephen King is, so, you know, whatever. This one, I wouldn't recommend. It's kind of forgetful. Other than those two, like, points I just told you, I can't remember a lot else from it. Speed it up now, 32 minutes in, Jesus. Next up we have a hardcover dust jacket version of Hearts in Atlantis, which is another collection book. I have not read this. I have not read this yet. And I actually really like the, I found this in one of the secondhand bookstores down at the coast. Really like the cover on this one. I know the regular Hearts in Atlantis cover that I normally see that everyone has is the one where it's like a street, like a residential neighborhood with like a signpost with like a peace sign on it. That's the usual one I see everyone have. This one I kind of actually, I kind of like it. I like it better because it's like unique. It's one that I hadn't seen up until the point in time when I got this from the bookstore. Yeah, up until that point I hadn't actually seen this book with that particular front cover. Next up we have, I believe, the first book he wrote after he was injured. And I believe he wrote it all by hand, like on pen and paper, which would have been fucked because it's not exactly a short book. It is Dreamcatcher. I was really holding off on buying this one because I wanted to get the hardcover version that has that really, really, really cool image of like the deer in the snow, and like I don't know if it's a gunshot or like a flash off a scope or something like that, and the sun glints on it or whatever. But that hardcover, if you're a King fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. I was really wanting that one because I just really liked the look of that front cover, and never ended up getting it. And eventually I was like, I seen this at a secondhand bookstore, and I was like, yeah, well, I'll just grab this version. It's just like the hut, I guess, where they are. I have seen the movie that was apparently really terrible. I remember bits and pieces from it, don't remember it all. Haven't read the book though. Next up, and the last one to end the second shelf out of 4, we have a hardcover dust jacket version of Everything's Eventual, which is, this one is another short story, or another collection. I was calling them collections. Have not read it, so I'm guessing the amount that I just seen in the contents. Yeah, I'm imagining it is a short story collection. I did see it had 1408 in there, which was a movie that I have seen, and I really like the movie. So when I do get around to reading this one, that'll probably be one that I'll be looking at. The movie kind of really unnerved me, to be honest. It was a kind of a fucked up movie. But yeah, I'm just going to keep going. We are 35 minutes in, so hopefully I can just kind of like buzz through the other 2 shelves. Okay, we've got a hardcover dust jacket version of From a Buick 8. I have read this one. This one, since I haven't read Christine, this one I was kind of like, this is Christine, like a different version of Christine or something. Not sure. I guess because they're both cars or whatever. This one, it was much like Desperation. It was a bit of a struggle to get through it, and it was kind of a chore to read it. But I pushed through, and I managed to finish the entire thing pretty recently. I think like last year I like read it. So yeah, it's still pretty fresh in my mind, and I can remember a lot of what happened in it. So yeah, I've got to like turn around now and read Christine to see if it's kind of the same thing. My guess is it won't be. Next up, we have a hardcover dust jacket version of Cell. I have read this. Yeah. I can't say a lot about it. It's like an apocalypse for cell phones or whatever. A lot of people, there's another one that a lot of people either loved or hated. This one, it's like, it's good. I know there was a part where there was a certain thing that happened and it made me tear up. I got a bit emotional. But in general, it's one I remember, but it's not one that, oh god, I'd recommend for people that aren't looking to like really get into Stephen King. Next up, the shelves are so tight. I have so many books packed per shelf that it's really hard to get like a book out once all of them are in there. Actually need to get a new shelf. I have one in like the spare room that has 5 shelves instead of 4, and that's the only way that I can put the newest book I bought a couple of days ago on a shelf, because I have literally no room. I have literally no room left on any of the 4 shelves on this bookcase. So once I move that one in here and we do everything that we need to do, I should have a whole extra space for more, like a whole extra shelf for more King books. And I'm currently, as far as I can tell, it's set up to date. But yeah, next up we have Lisey's Story, or Lisey's Story. I'm not sure, I always call it Lisey's Story. Could be correct, could be incorrect, I don't know. I like the colour, the blue with the butterfly. This one, it's kind of actually big. Actually, maybe not. Yeah, I think it's deceiving. It's one that looks big. Yeah, it's like a decent 650, 700 pages, I guess. This one, I can remember parts to it, but once again, it's one of the ones that I've read, but I'm not 100% sure. I can't 100% remember what happens. I can just remember certain points, and that's about it. Yeah. Next up, we have one that I've been trying to get around to reading for a little while, but haven't yet to do that. It is Dumaki. This one, I remember I was going to start it there ages ago, and then I ended up putting it off, and I ended up not reading for a heap of months, and not reading anything for a heap of months, and I just still haven't read it yet. But yeah, Dumaki, one of the ones that I have not read. But yeah, I'll just show the covers off. I know me personally, I like to look at King collections and like see what books people have, but also see the covers. Because perhaps it's a different cover than what you have previously seen. Next up we have Just After Sunset, which is another collection book. This one I have not read either. I don't know what's in it. I'm not going to bother checking. But yeah, Just After Sunset. Have yet to read it. Oh god, move this one out here. Next up we have a pretty big book. I actually had to I read like a quarter of it and then stopped and didn't read for like a heap of months, and then read the same quarter of it again. I had to go back and start it again. Read the same quarter of it, same amount again, and then stopped, didn't read for a couple of months, and when I came back to it, the bookmark was still like a quarter of the way through the book, and I was like, I've got to actually turn around and read this fucking thing. So I'm not going to read so many chapters I've already read twice now. I'm going to just start it from where it is, and, you know, push through and read the entire thing, which I did. It is Under the Dome. I believe, from what I can remember, if you want a kind of idea of when I started reading King, I think at the time this was the newest book out. Like this one, I started reading King, and the first time I heard that a new Stephen King book was coming out was Under the Dome. This one I liked the story and the idea and the concept. Obviously it was ruined a bit by the Simpsons movie, which came out literally the same time, so whenever the Simpsons movie came out, I guess. But this book, very big. My biggest issue with it was that there was too many characters, and I think that's why I stopped and started it so many times. There was just so many fucking goddamn characters in this book, and I couldn't really keep up with, you know, this person, and this person, and this person, and I just kind of forgot a lot of the people. There was a lot of fucking, what you would call, there wasn't really a main character, there was just a lot of main characters, I guess. It was very hard to keep up with. You were keeping up with a whole town rather than just one person, or maybe a group of like 3 or 4 people. You were keeping up with an entire town, which is kind of a difficult thing to do. Next up we have a novella collection that I have read as well, Full Dark No Stars. A lot of stuff I'm going to start showing now is a lot of the newer stuff, and I was basically reading them as soon as they came out, except for this. I only knocked off the first 2 novellas from this, which was 1922 and Big Driver. I knocked them off very recently, like 2 weeks ago. And the other 2, Fair Extension and A Good Marriage, I read a fair few years ago. But I've only actually recently knocked off all the stories in this book for me to say that it is finished. It's technically finished, I guess. I've read everything in it, so it's as finished as it can be unless I go back and reread. But yeah. Next up, we have 11/22/63. Obviously, since Under the Dome came out, it was basically since I started reading King, according to a lot of people, it was kind of a return to form from him. His first shelf of books had a lot of classics in it, and then once Needful Things came out and he got sober, a lot of people reckon that the works that followed Needful Things after he was sober were kind of subpar up until Under the Dome came out and he's returned to form recently. I wouldn't exactly say that out of the books that I've read in that apparently subpar period. But yeah, this is one of the ones that are quoted as saying that this is King back in his good writing, I guess. But yeah, 11/22/63. I have read this as well. Next up, we have Doctor Sleep, which is the companion book, or however you call it. Basically, it's the sequel to The Shining, as I was talking about way back 45 minutes ago at the start of the video. This one I have read as well. After I read The Shining, I obviously got that done first to read this one. But yeah, this one, alright book. Is it better than The Shining? I don't think it's better than The Shining. I did enjoy The Shining better. But this one, it's alright. It kind of gives you kind of what Denny, I believe, is the kid from The Shining, the little boy that can see shit. This kind of gives you a bit of an idea of what Denny got up to from The Shining, which is apparently King's third book, all the way down to the basically today kind of thing, how old he'd be. He aged him appropriately between The Shining and when Doctor Sleep came out. So, yeah. Next up, we have the first book in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, or the Bill Hodges trilogy. I usually call it the Bill Hodges trilogy. The first book, Mr. Mercedes. I really like this paperback cover with all the black umbrellas and then the one blue one. Yeah, I really like this cover for some reason. But yeah, this was kind of like King delving less into horror and more into like a detective novel. And then obviously it became like a whole trilogy thing. This one out of the whole Bill Hodges trilogy, this one is my favorite. I like this one the best, Mr. Mercedes. Really enjoyed this book. Yeah. Continuing on, I don't have the Bill Hodges trilogy altogether, since there's literally one book in between each one, so I kind of didn't really bother keeping them together. Next up we have Revival. This one I did read as well. I remember it. I remember that it gave me some like life-altering questions after I'd finished it and all that, about mortality. But yeah, I can remember like something about a guitar, and you're kind of with the main character when he's a kid, and then when he's like a teenager or something like young adult, and he joins a band or something, and he's like the guitarist or something along those lines. I can't remember fully well what this book was like and about and all that, but yeah, that was Revival. Next up, we have obviously the second book to the Bill Hodges trilogy, which is Finders Keepers. There's the umbrella once again. Finders Keepers, it was my second favorite book in the series. Like, the trilogy goes like my first favorite, second favorite, and then my least favorite out of the series. Like, it goes in the order that it goes in, kind of thing. This one was alright as well. I can remember more from Mr. Mercedes, which obviously I read prior to reading this one. I can remember more from Mr. Mercedes than I can from this one, but it wasn't too bad. Yeah. Next up we have the last short story / novella collection that I have, which is the Bazaar of Bad Dreams. I really like this fucking cover, even though it's very simplistic. I really like the cover. I did read all this one. Pretty recently, probably end of last year I read it. Can't remember a lot of the stories off by heart that are in it. I remember Your, which I believe was the one about the spooky Kindle. But yeah, it was alright. I'm always happy for King's works, if they're good or not. But yeah, it's short story collections. I can't really say whether I liked or disliked, because they're not like a novel where I can be like, oh yeah, I liked Misery. This one I might like one short story from it, and then everything else is kind of subpar. So I can't really say that I like the entire collection. But yeah, that's the Bazaar of Bad Dreams. Which obviously brings us to the last book in the Bill Hodges trilogy, and in my opinion, the least best, whatever. The worst, I guess, in the series, which is End of Watch. This one did not enjoy, mainly because I was thinking for this entire trilogy that King was just going to do a straight detective trilogy of books, and it was just going to be just all good like that. And then he goes and adds supernatural shit into this one. So that's why it's my least favorite. It's not that it's a particularly bad book, it's just that I was really hoping that the entire trilogy would be a strictly detective crime kind of book, leaving out the supernatural stuff for other books, and I guess King just couldn't do it. As I said, it's not a bad book, it's just that my hopes were kind of dashed, because I was really hoping that it would stay true to Mr. Mercedes and Finders Keepers and not have any supernatural kind of things in it, but no. And then to end off our third shelf, we have this big motherfucker. Came out last year. I remember it coming out, and I went down like the day it was meant to come out to my local Big W, and they didn't have it there, and it turned out that it was coming out a week after that in Australia or something like that. So I went down and I got this immediately. I was going to read it immediately, and I still have yet to read it. It's Stephen King and his son Owen King. The book is called Sleeping Beauties. I really like the imagery on the front cover. It's like a peacock and the blue and all that. This one is going to be interesting. Yeah, that's all I can say. It's pretty big. I was going to read it. I remember even putting the bookmark in when I firstly got it, and yeah, I never ended up reading it because it was because I was just doing other stuff. I really wasn't reading at that point in time, and if I wasn't reading a book that's quite that size. So yeah, technically that's the third shelf done, but it's only because I don't have any room left on it, and I've got to obviously bring in the one with 5 shelves instead of 4. Otherwise, what would normally be coming next that I can show off would be this book I got like 3 or 4 days ago now, The Outsider. Obviously this book, brand new. Stephen King brought it out in March this year. It's the newest book I believe he's brought out. I think he's bringing out like a novella or something called Elevation, like in 2 days' time or something like that. Accordingly, 30th of October. But I looked at it and it's only 150 pages, so it's only a novella. They have it on StephenKing.com in the library. They have it ranked as a novel and a novella. And I looked at the novellas section, and there's like 4 or 5 there. I think it's like 4 there that are, including Elevation, that haven't been collected into a collection yet. So I'm hoping that Elevation he'll like bring out next year or something. And I'll try and hold off on buying Elevation up until then, and he'll bring Elevation out into like a novella collection like Full Dark No Stars. Yeah, and you know, bring out a novella collection for that will have Elevation in it. But yeah, other than that, this is the newest King book that's out, and it's really sad because I've just got to kind of leave it out of the bookshelf until we bring the new one in, and I can utilize a 5th shelf. Up until then, it's just going to kind of be sitting on the spare bed. But yeah, so that's all of them. And you might be thinking, I know we're fucking 54 minutes in. I'm going to try and rattle these next ones off pretty quickly. That is 3 shelves out of 4. I still have 1 more shelf to go, and this is kind of like, obviously all that was in chronological order. The final shelf is just stuff that either didn't fit in chronological order, based off like the front kind of thing of the book of like other books by this author. They're the Bachman books, or they're the stuff that just the mismatch ones that I didn't really know where to put, or to put them anywhere. But yeah, we'll quickly get into it. Quickly drag them out. We have the Dark Tower series. I have read the entire Dark Tower series. I'm not going to say I've read this one, I've read this one. I've read the entire thing. I've read all 7 books. Really enjoyed it. This one was the worst, though. The Gunslinger. I really like the artwork. I managed to get... God, fluff. I managed to get the correct artwork. Well, not the correct artwork, but all of them kind of like have this spine. And once they're all put together, which I'll show you once I kind of finish showing you all the books, and then like show my entire bookcase, all the spines put together make the Dark Tower, and they all have the same theme. I managed to get every single Dark Tower book in the same kind of publication, so they're not all mismatched and odd. Otherwise my OCD would have been going off. Next up, we have the Dark Tower 2, well, the Dark Tower Volume 2, The Drawing of the Three. Another very nice cover there. Yep. Just keep in mind that I've already read all these kind of thing. Next up we have the Dark Tower Volume 3, The Wastelands. Really like the covers, the artworks. There's some of the best artworks in my opinion out of my entire collection are these Dark Tower series books. I'll quickly knock these down a bit just so I don't put too much fucking weight on this one shelf. Next up we have the Dark Tower Volume 4, Wizard and Glass, what a lot of people consider to be the best one. Yeah, I don't really have a favourite or whatever. Maybe it's that, I don't know, it's kind of a lot of book for a series kind of thing. Next up we have the Dark Tower Volume 5, The Walls of the Calla. Yeah, once again, the artwork I just fucking love on these books. And yeah, obviously they're all the same spine work, which I'll show later on. And then we have the Dark Tower Volume 6, Song of Susanna. I really liked the rainbow, and obviously the Dark Tower is even closer and all that. This one was really cool. Like the artwork anyway. I'm pretty sure the book wasn't. It's more or less a setup for the 7th book. But yeah. And then obviously, last but not least, we have the Dark Tower Volume 7, The Dark Tower. The final book in the Dark Tower series. Yeah. As I said, the Dark Tower, I've read all 7 books, the entire series. I really like it. Almost forgot. You're probably sitting there angrily typing right now. Oh, what about the Dark Tower, a Dark Tower novel, whatever you want to call it, The Wind Through the Keyhole. I do have that one as well, and to top it off, Mum also got it in the same spine, the same kind of artwork, the same publication as the other 7 books, which I thought I was going to miss out on, and I was going to have this one be very mismatched. But yeah, so big ups to her. That's all the Dark Tower books kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to drop all in there. I guess next up we have the Richard Buckman books, which we have hardcover copy of The Regulators. This one I've read, didn't like. This is meant to be the companion novel to Desperation, and as I said, I didn't like Desperation, I didn't like The Regulators. The idea, the premise behind the book, if you have read it, I thought it could be interesting. It wasn't. Wasn't super pumped about it. Next up, we have Thinner, also, writing as Richard Buckman. This one is more of like supernatural kind of thing than the other Richard Buckman books, which are more of a standard non-supernatural kind of thing. So yeah, Thinner. It was alright. It's better than The Regulators, but it's not better than a lot of other Stephen King titled books, I guess. Next up we have Blaze, which I did get kind of recently, I think like last year, I want to say. which is also another Richard Bachman book, or writing as Richard Bachman. I have read this one as well. I think earlier on this year. I haven't read a lot of books this year, but I did end up doing this one. Yeah, it was all right. In my opinion, probably better than both Thinner and the Regulators. Blaze is probably better than those other two. Next up, we have the one I am currently reading, which is the Bachman books. And boy, am I pissed, because when I got this, I got it from a second-hand bookstore. I thought, oh, it's second-hand. Hopefully that means I get the old edition that has 4 novels in it rather than only 3, and then that'll give me Rage, and then I'll have Rage, even though it won't be in the first edition copy, which I'm not really particularly harried about getting the first edition copy. It's mainly that I just want the book, I want the novel in my Stephen King collection, even if it has to be, in the Bachman books. And no, they gave me a I think it's a 2012 publication, or 2012 version of it, that does not have Rage in it, and it only includes The Long Walk, Roadwork, and The Running Man. Obviously you can see my bookmark in there at the moment. I have just finished the first one. I finished The Long Walk, and that is, at least at the moment, hands down the best Richard Bachman, pseudonym named Bachman book that I've read so far. So I've read The Long Walk out of this, and obviously I've still got this much to go, which is obviously includes Roadwork and The Running Man, so I'm getting around to that as we speak. Next up, we have The Green Mile. Didn't know where to put it. I know it came out in like 5 or 6 like really small kind of like books, and this has all of them put into one. I've seen most of the movie. I don't think I've seen the entire movie, and I have read the book. I do know the sad part in the movie. You know The Green Mile before you actually, the Green Mile, of the movie. But yeah, I've seen the entire movie, more or less. I've seen the sad part at the end and all that. And I have read the book, and I did cry in the book too, which normally books don't evoke a lot of emotion from me. I'm just reading them for the story. I don't really get scared or sad or something like that a lot of the time. But there is a couple, obviously, in this collection that I have gotten sad over, and The Green Mile is definitely one of them. I think it's mainly because it invoked images of the movie. Next up, we have one that I actually have to get rid of from this collection because it is only a novella, much like Elevation is going to be. It is a hardcover, really weird hardcover, but yeah, Blockade Billy. This one actually got collected and put into the Bazaar of Bad Dreams, and this one is actually unread. I bought it, and then I ended up reading the Bazaar of Bad Dreams and realized, hey, this novella is in the Bazaar of Bad Dreams. I believe it's the Bazaar of Bad Dreams anyway. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah. So I don't actually need to read this anymore because I've already read it in the Bazaar of Bad Dreams. Technically, this one could, this could go. I don't technically need it in the bookshelf, but since it is so thin, it's not really taking up a lot of space. To be honest, I wouldn't, and it's on the 4th shelf, so I wouldn't be able to fit the Outsider in anyway, because that's where all the Misfit books, I guess you could say, go, and the Dark Tower series. Coming down finally to the last 2 books that I have, legitimately the last 2 books I have. They are the Stephen King and Peter Straub co-written books. I have The Talisman, have not read it yet, have not read the Talisman series yet. I believe there's meant to be, according to a lot of people, they reckon it's meant to be a trilogy, but they've only done 2 books so far, and I kind of feel weird. I really want him and Peter Straub to, if it's meant to be a trilogy and the story hasn't finished by the 2nd book, I kind of really want him and Peter Straub. I don't even know if Peter Straub's still alive or who the fuck he even is, but I kind of want him and Peter Straub to get together and fucking write the third book before I actually start the Talisman series, just so I can kind of read the Talisman and then read the second book and then go on to that new third book that has yet to be made. But yeah, from what I've heard, it's meant to be a trilogy, but I have not read this series yet. And then obviously, last up, we have the hardcover dust jacket version, Stephen King, Peter Straub, Black House, which, as I said, is meant to be, it's meant to go to the Talisman and then Black House, so I've got them sitting down there together. With the other Misfit books, I guess, technically speaking, I could put... God, what's it called? I could put Sleeping Beauties, Stephen King and Owen King, co-wrote. I could put that down there, but as I said, that space is too full. You wouldn't be able to fit Sleeping Beauties there. But technically speaking, it would make sense since the other two co-written books with Stephen King that I have are down there. It would make sense, but I'm probably just going to keep it up on the Sleeping Beauties up on the third shelf where it is at the moment. Simply because of the fact that it's just not any space down there. But yeah, so that there, guys, it took a fucking hour and 6 minutes. God damn. Hope you really bought popcorn. I probably should have said that at the start. That is my Stephen King book collection. If you know of any other books that I'm missing, if you know any other books that I'm missing at the moment, other than obviously the two non-fiction ones, Dance Macabre, On Writing, which I'm going to get later on. I probably won't bother putting it in this section. I probably won't bother. It's just make this like a fiction bookcase, I guess, of Stephen King's. And yeah, I probably won't. Oh, actually, I forgot. How could I think I forgot because I put the Buckman books on top. Not technically in order, but Joyland. You were all typing angrily again, dude. I can tell. I do have Joyland as well. I have read it. Did enjoy it. I don't think I did that one. But yeah. Other than that, guys, that is all my Stephen King books now, officially. The only ones I don't have, obviously, the two non-fiction ones, Dance Macabre and On Writing. I'm thinking about getting On Writing at some point in time soon, simply because I'm an aspiring writer. I want to, apparently that gives me some tips and tricks from the master himself. And then the other two fiction books that I know about that I don't have is The Colorado Kid, which actually looks a lot like the cover of this one, so I think it's kind of the same thing. And I know Joyland is very obscure in terms of King books. So yeah, it's The Colorado Kid and Rage are the only two that well, those four, the two non-fiction ones, and then The Colorado Kid and Rage are the ones that I'm aware of that I'm missing. And if you guys know any other collections or any other novels, especially novels, that I'm missing other than those four that I have not shown, please leave comments down below on what they are, so I can look them up, Google them, research them, and see where I can get them, so I can actually fully complete the collection. But other than those, since this is only really fiction, and then I'm getting On Writing simply for the fact that it's that it will help my writing, is from what I understand. That's the only reason I'm getting that. I won't bother about Dance Macabre. Stephen King Goes to the Movies, obviously, is another one that I believe I already have all the short stories in, so I'm not going to worry about that either. And other than that, Colorado Kid and Rage are the only two fiction books that I can think of that I need. If you can think of any others, thumbs up to you, and I'll be very happy. Quickly try and get these all put back together. Oh god. Oh god. This one. what order do these go in? They go there. We need Songs to Deserve, Wolves of the Calla, Wizard of Glass, The Wastelands, Drawing 3, The Gunslinger. Oh God! And then Sleeping Beauties. You probably have just now realised I don't have editing skills. Editing skills or editing software of any sort, so sorry about that, guys. Obviously, if you just want to see the collection, you can click off now. No hard feelings. Gotta squeeze all these in here. Okay, that should be good enough. Now, I'm just going to have to hold it like this because I don't want to bump something and fuck it up. But, yeah, obviously you got top shelf. Oh God. Second shelf. Third shelf. And then the final shelf. And as you can see, like, yeah, here, oh God, there, I believe, from what I can see, you have the Dark Tower books that are all kind of, their spines all line up and shit, unless this entire video has been, didn't get fixed up and is all, everything is all back to front. Other than that, guys, it's been an hour, 12 minutes, showing off all them. If you guys managed to stay till the end, thank you very much. And yeah, if you guys know any other books that I'm missing, please send me a message, leave a comment, or whatever. But yeah, other than that, guys, this is Capone, saying bye.